Companies like Bethesda and BioWare, games like Marathon and Apex Legends, but after every new character gets introduced, you need a separate gender reveal party for that character, otherwise, no one knows what they're supposed to even be. Are not really the causes of the decline of the gaming industry. I honestly think they're just symptoms. Pretty big symptoms, honestly. But I don't think they're honestly the cause of all of our problems. They're just something that keeps spreading the sickness.
Let me set the tone of today's video with a quote. Let me know if you agree with it. Here it is. Tarkov has done irreparable damage to the games industry. Everything needs to be a what do you call them? Extraction shooter. Those are the words of an exasperated man. That man is from New Blood Interactive. He's the founder. His name is David Oshry. And while he does go on to poke some fun at himself, basically saying, I'm an old boomer, I'm not the target audience of this game, he did say what many people are actually feeling, that just like with the Battle Royales, we see yet another groan-worthy industry trend-chasing event where everything has got to be a bloody extraction shooter. I mean, even Respawn was making a tight
True. You know what's the funniest part about these trend chasing bonanzas? It's the fact that everything is non profitable, so games in these genres cannot be made. Like extraction shooters. You right? Remember when extraction shooters were bad? Yeah, I remember. And then suddenly something good happens, and there's an extraction shooter that gets millions of players in it, makes a bunch of money, and everyone's like, "Well, guess extraction shooters are viable, so we make games now in extraction shooters." Yeah, pretty much all genres at this point are unviable because there's no players in them until someone makes a good game and turns out there's literally millions of people wanting to play those games. Again, I'm tired of saying this, but Baldur's Gate 3, Helldivers. Well, Helldivers is no, it's not really an extraction shooter now, is it? But, Clear Obscure Expedition 33. All of these things had no audience and were dead in the water until they had millions of people playing them.
Titanfall extraction shooter before it was cancelled. Because hey, Titanfall can't be Titanfall. But recently, something happened to change this story a little bit. Marathon happened, but then Arc Raiders happened. And Arc Raiders is getting traction in a way that Marathon has not. And
What is Arc Raiders? I have heard the name, but I don't know anything about it.
figuring out why I've came to a hell of a realization. So, let's get the show on the road. Tarkov is an extraction game, but not all extraction games are like Tarkov. Extraction is essentially just this. Games where a player enters a level, attempts to gather valuable resources, and then extracts those back to some sort of meta progression layer. Tarkov fits that, but so does Repo, Lethal Company, and Helldivers 2. Each of those does well off the absurd wacky comedy you get when you've got these messy little meaty things called human beings interacting in a group with a whole bunch of interesting systems. That's basically what makes the genre kinda cool. So what's different, then, about games like Tarkov or Marathon? Well, simple, right? PvE and PvP. Tension stems from the potential for loss in both, but in PvE, it feels like a loss.
You know what I think is honestly going to happen? The more the world becomes full of boomers, because again, remember, boomers are not a group of people born in from year X to year Y. No, 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 no. Being a boomer is a mentality, and half of that mentality is drinking White Claw uh, Monster every day. And again, everyone can become a boomer. And you become a boomer where you understand it. Wait a minute. I don't want to be competitive anymore. I just want to play games because I want to play games. I don't want to be competitive anymore. That's it. I don't want to even do PvP, okay? I just want PvE. And I think we are slowly pushing in that direction where PvP becomes a little bit redundant, a little bit irrelevant, and so every game is going to be PvE based. And then some game is going to introduce PvP after like 2 or 3 years, and it's gonna be the new big thing, and it's gonna be a resurgence of PvP games.
While in PvP, it feels like something has been taken from you by another person, and that does not appeal to everyone. But it obviously does appeal to a lot of people, because the tension is second to goddamn none. Anyway, the point is that, as Bungie probably noticed when they looked at their majority PvE Destiny audience, talk about Marathon, yeah, not everybody likes the PvP part, but this actually goes deeper. PvE games can naturally coexist. They're inherently more positive sum, but without players, a PvP game is dead. So, of course, our eyes roll at the sight of yet another PvP extraction game. We think they just seem like, oh, another game that's probably
God, I love these literalist, genderless freak characters that all have fucking lipstick and uh it's so it's so painful for the eyes.
another game that's probably going to fail, so why even bother getting excited? Marathon invoked that feeling. Now, to be fair, part of that is just general, breached trust with Bungie, but a lot of it is just the big trend that we've seen this all before with the Battle Royale. But why is it that Marathon invokes that, but Arc Raiders does not? See, here's the thing. Both games just had alphas, but the responses to those alphas could not have been more different. Marathon's alpha lasted just under 2 weeks, and according to Paul Tassie's sources, it actually didn't go as planned. That's actually now true on
Oh yeah, we remembered that. There were reports that streamers were given exclusive opportunities to stream the alpha, and they're like, no, this looks shit. I'm not gonna do that. Thank you very much.
multiple levels. So first off, it was to be a closed alpha, a closed test, but Bungie allegedly lifted the NDA in an attempt to counter the skeptical reception that they got to the reveal of their game. Now, going a level deeper, it's obviously a true alpha, not just a marketing exercise or a server test, right? And Paul Tassie's sources corroborate that it, again, is a real test of game design and systems. So whenever players who have played the testing version say that Marathon cannot launch like this, they're literally correct. It can't. It's a true alpha. It never should be launched. Now, we all understand why Bungie responded this way, right? They were doing an alpha anyway. They had mixed reception, and they basically thought, seeing is believing. We need people to get footage out there. Just like, say, what EA actually did with Battlefield, in a little bit of a way. But to go back to the story, unfortunately for Bungie, a true alpha often won't make for an explosive marketing coup, because it's true alpha. It's not going to blow people away with its polish. But even then, reactions have been mixed, and they fall into two broad camps. This is what matters. One, it doesn't have enough extraction shooter genre conventions to satisfy genre fans. Problem two, it doesn't have a strong enough hook to pull in non-extraction shooter fans. That's a little bit of a pickle, and those non-extraction shooter fans are in many cases going to
I mean, most people are
be Destiny players.
most people are completely offset by Marathon just from the design aesthetic of it. You're in a fucking swamp, you can't find Shrek, and your character looks like it just finished a day-dem surgery, okay? It's ass. It's bad. It's sad.
You know, the audience that Bungie actually had.
Listen, all parts of the game matters. The shooting matters. The controls matter. The gameplay matters. The character design matters. The aesthetics matter. The color palette even matters. All of these things together form something. And Marathon is just not it.
And that is a rough situation for them. And while this is not some sort of huge rejection of the game, Paul Tassie points out there are hundreds of thousands of people trying to get codes, or there were, in the Marathon Discord. What it does is it sets a bad tone. And that is a bad tone that Arc Raiders just exploited. In a way, this is actually just goddamn tragic. So Marathon is effectively where Arc Raiders was in June 2023. It's a small-scale technical test designed to get feedback on the core systems and stability. But Arc Raiders then got the luxury of 2 whole years of iteration ahead of its full launch, which is, going to be this year. Marathon, though, has until September. So not only did Arc have more time, but it also is able to meet those Marathon criticisms head on. Genre fans get what they would expect. There is proximity chat, solo queuing, crafting, and that's only to name a few. But most important...
Listen, there's no way Bungie will ever allow their players to have proximity this proximity chat, okay?
Certainly, the hooks for Ark have actually landed, where it's now not just appealing to the hardcore genre fans.
Okay, listen, to be fair, I don't know what Arc Raiders is, but just by the look at it, I can tell you what's the huge difference. Bungie is a Vogue slop company, and whatever Arc Raiders is not even close to that level of Vogue. So, one is a winner and the other one is a loser because pattern recognition is very useful in our time and age, okay?
And that's, I think, quite because it's third person, post apocalyptic setting. You're heading to the surface for 30 minutes, scavenging what you can, getting back underground before you're killed by other players or big giant robots. It's
Ooh,
actually doing
robots.
enough to hook in other people, and I think it helps that, I mean,
You know what's the extraction shooter I'm excited about? I don't remember its name, but it's also a post-apocalyptic with robots, but there's some kind of biogenesis robots because they have fleshy bits also, and it's kind of like that. But oh my god, it's so cool. And I forgot its name, but I'm actually very hyped about that game. Some of you know what I'm going to be talking about. The idea is that there's things that you can't even fight in that game, and everything is a little bit lot more darker and grittier. Very cool.
my god, they have executed their vibe, their visuals, their sound, their graphic design. They've really nailed that. And the response to actually playing this game has been really positive from the people who have got access, especially in the streaming community. There's footage from Shroud, Jack Frags, and the others that are showing off essentially the best of what an extraction game can be. That you get emergent narrative moments of, taking on threats, negotiation with opponents, tense combat, all of that blending together with these photogrammetry built locations that look stunning, and a lo-fi 80s sci-fi aesthetic that they've absolutely nailed. That's strong stuff. But mostly, it's a traditional extraction shooter gameplay that's just been hyper polished and iterated on. And that makes complete sense, because technically, it really doesn't seem that this thing's changed much since the early footage in 2022. Obviously, behind the scenes it has, that's the whole point. They may look fairly similar to us.
2022. I have completely missed what Arc Raiders is. I know nothing about this game. Anyone care to tell me, should I look into this? Because again, I'm not an extraction shooter fan in general, okay? I think they're cool, but typically I'm not an extraction shooter fan in general.
As players just comparing frames of trailers, but all those years of work actually went somewhere. And that's what brings us to the other marathon comparison, reveals going poorly. You see, here's the funny thing. Embark, the developer behind Arc Raiders, initially revealed it as a PvE extraction game, but they then delayed it to work in the finals, and then they pivoted Arc over to PvP after basically doing PvP playtests internally and them literally just having more fun. Now, I get that from their perspective, but that was a bit of a bold thing. You told people it would be PvE, so it's not surprising that their re-reveal of that as a PvP game completely backfired. I saw goddamn rage everywhere back, June 2023. It was just that perfect mix of disappointment and anger, but it actually turns out that in video games, polish actually does make the difference. In removing PvE, Arc took the thing that hyped people the most away. And that's the point where these two games diverge. Arc gets so much polish that it stands out beyond its genre, basically convincing people.
Also, look at this. This is such a better aesthetic than whatever the fuck Marathon is. Okay, clean and sterile fits. You know what, in my opinion, that fits? A single-player story-driven game. Not anything multiplayer. Not an extraction shooter, especially. Okay? Some kind of, I don't know, post-apocalyptic mystery storyline type of game. That's what I think, neat and sterile fits the best. But this is... imagine how Marathon would look in a similar environment with their color palette, their everything. It would look horrible. This, on the other hand, seems dark, gritty, and exactly on point, boys.
people that know this actually is worth paying attention to. Marathon, though, well, it gets an NDA lifted, revealing a game too early in development to stand above its genre. That's absolutely going to sting for the developers. I mean, just think what they've been through being at Bungie this last while with all the chaos. But as much as that's true, we are skeptical for a reason. And this is the big learning, because it goes deeper than just trend chasing. Nexon acquired Embark, Embark of course being the Arc Raiders developers, in 2021. And it's easy to read the change to Arc Raiders as a, hey, make the game PvP, make more money, just like Tarkov, we're Nexon, money me now. Yeah, you could read it as that. But part of the distinction between PvP and PvE extraction games is that PvP creates more potential for interesting gameplay. That's basically just because it's hard to make AI so good that the AI can top the sheer chaos created by other players. That's also why Dave Oshry was kind of, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, mad about things. You see, that quote I was talking about at the top of the video, that was him reacting to Hidetaki Miyazaki from Software, and the fact that he really likes Tarkov. Yes, Miyazaki loves Tarkov. Talking about the Duskbloods, which is the new FromSoft game, he told IGN that the network functionality and the game design were particularly interesting, quote, in Tarkov, for example, so I'm basically paying attention to those elements as a creator and a fan of the game. So, yeah, basically
Oh yeah, so this is the Elden Rings, extraction shooter, but with swords. It was funny. I remember watching this and I was confused because I honestly, it's PvE, but I don't see that long of a lifespan for this. Though people will love it at the start, but I don't see that long of a lifespan for this. And people were mad at me because I thought I missed a one-word sentence where it was when it was PvE, not PvP, and I thought that this is a PvP game, and I was like, holy shit, this is such a bad choice. Turns out it's a PvE game. Well, damn.
Mr. Elden Ring, Mr. Dark Souls, really likes Tarkov, and that's what he's bringing to the next game. So in one way, the Duskbloods has a similar inspirational lineage, this is where it gets wild, as something like Clara Obscura Expedition 33. That may seem wild, but hold on a second. It's the result of a developer who finds something compelling in the systems of a game that they love, and they want to see what they can do with that. That's what Expedition 33 does to Final Fantasy X. It's what Miyazaki wants to do with Tarkov. It seems to actually come from a genuine place. That may even be why could actually be pretty damn good. I think there's something noble in that, and perhaps, more so in convincing Nintendo to actually pay for that experiment. I'm sure they like the idea of having an extraction. Because there's also the industry component to this. Investors and publishers will think that they have seen this pattern before. By pattern, I mean this. PUBG was the first big battle royale game, right? But it was Fortnite that made it approachable and massively scaled it beyond the hardcore audience. So with that in mind, why did COD and Battlefield ram extraction modes in? Why are the big companies doing extraction? Why are ex-veteran AAA developers on the whole west coast of America all funded by random VCs to make extraction games these days? Well, the same reason, right? If PUBG is Tarkov, then we have not...
But he says VC, he means venture capitalist. Venture capitalists are people who put a lot of money in projects that seem risky but could have incredible returns. That's why they're doing this to this industry, because it's the game industry. Okay, if you accidentally sponsor the next Fortnite, and again, venture capitalism is kind of insane because in venture capitalism you actually get most of the returns. But the risk of losing all of your money is also pretty great. There's not a lot of protection venture capitalists have if things go wrong, okay? Because that's the risk they take. But the return is huge. And obviously if they put in enough money and if someone does get the next Fortnite, well holy shit, you just sponsored your literally next 500 venture capitalistic endeavors. By the way, this is the same thing that I constantly attribute to Microsoft, if you're wondering. even though I never called them a venture capitalist firm. But Microsoft is just simply so big that it actually loses more not acting like a venture capitalistic firm when it comes to a lot of their decision making.
Not seen the Fortnite equivalent. And that's why there's so much money behind this genre. To you and me, it's yet more companies doing stupid trend chasing. It's another rush of just companies slinging minimum viable products at us. That's the big point. That's why we roll our eyes, right? At, oh my god, Realm Royale, wow, another BR, that's just what I needed. And if you ask me, that's the difference between the highlight games of this video, of Marathon and Arc Raiders. Basically, Marathon has went down the way that it did because it feels like a minimum viable product. It right now is an alpha in the truest sense, even though it apparently
No, it's probably just because a bunch of woke retards made this.
has got to come out in September. Arc Raiders does not feel like that. It does not feel like a minimum viable product because we know what it looked like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we know that they've just relentlessly honed it. That doesn't feel like something that's just been shat out to try to capture some of a genre, and that's why, as players, we have responded differently. In a world full of skepticism and lacking in authenticity,
In a world full of skepticism, all games are bad until they turn good. Anyway, that was Billion News 10 out of 10. Bye!